was trying to do it this way so you guys will have what you get at the store that comes with. Hi there, this is Ray with Easy Simple Mechanic, and today we're going to just some stuff to go over on ACs. I know it's that time of the year, and so a lot of folks are getting their AC systems on their vehicles, making sure they're working properly, or that you know, if they need Freon, they're adding Freon and what have you. But this little tracker we have here came to me because the individual in the past has tried to add Freon to his vehicle, and he had it blow a hose on him during the process, and he was concerned, so he brought this one to me so that I could check it and add Freon if it needs it and what have you. So I'll explain a little bit about what can happen if you're not sure about what you're doing. They've made it so easy these days at AutoZone or O'Reilly's or those places to just buy the Freon with the little hose and everything, and you just go plug it in and you put some Freon in, and it gives you a little green or blue or whatever level on the Freon. But a lot of times the issue isn't that it has low Freon. It might have a blockage, like a frozen expansion valve, if it had moisture in the system or something, and therefore blocking it, in which case you would have a high side pressure and low side pressure. So, you know, we'll just check it out and we'll see, and I'll explain things as we go and put Freon on this. The other thing we want, let's get started on this tracker, and so I can explain what's going on. Okay, so on this tracker, the new systems, the old systems used to have the same size valves to be able to put Freon and what have you. The newer type, or the 134 version of these AC systems, have a smaller low side pressure and a larger high side pressure. These being where they are, it's real easy because they're real close to each other to be confused as to which one is which. So you always know that the low side is the one going into the compressor, which is down here, and the high side is the one that comes out of the compressor and into the condenser. Okay, so if you see the hose coming and going into the condenser in front of the radiator, that's the high side pressure. You don't want to put Freon in this side, the high side pressure of the system. We just hook it up so that we can monitor the pressures. Okay, and then these little things, like this one here, is a little smaller for the low side than it is for the high side, and these just pull back and snap on to the deal, just like that. Okay, and then what we can see here is we can see the pressures. The pressures should equalize when the system is off. In other words, the low side and the high side, over time, they tend to go, you know, approximately to the same. If you leave it long enough, you'll get them even. Since he just showed up, this one, the low side, is like at 70 or so, and this one is like at 80 right now. But if you leave them for a while, they'll equalize. Okay, when you start the engine, you're gonna get, and click the AC on, you're gonna get a higher high side, and then the low side is called the suction side because that's a side the compressor is sucking the Freon through. So it'll go down because it's sucking, and this one will go up, which is pumping out of the compressor. Now what you want to be careful is that you don't go, typical systems will go above 200, maybe 220 to 250, but not much more than that. Any higher than that and you're getting too high. The low side pressure should be anywhere between, I don't know, 30 and 55 or so. 50 or 55 would be kind of high already on the low side pressure. But using the gauges, it allows you to troubleshoot any issues in your AC system. Now, if you had a blockage or you had been just putting Freon forever, you had a leak and you just keep putting Freon, every time you hook up one of these types of systems, or the little Freon that comes with the little hose and the gauge to your vehicle, you're gonna introduce a little bit of air, regular air, atmospheric air, into your system. And what that does, it then allows moisture to build over time. This little device here that's underneath this valve is called a receiver dryer, and it's supposed to remove the moisture from the system. If that thing gets saturated over many years, like this is an older vehicle, the system will get saturated with moisture, and it'll tend to build ice in the expansion valve, which is just before it enters the evaporator, which is the little thing inside the vehicle that then works kind of like a refrigerator to allow the fan to blow cold air through it and cool off the inside of the vehicle. When that happens, then you're going to be building high side pressure and low side pressure, because your compressor's pumping, but the air isn't moving through that expansion valve. And so if you try to charge your system, you're going to see, whoa, the low side pressure with the little gauge that you get at the store, it's going to show low pressure. So you keep putting more Freon and more Freon and more Freon, and this pressure on the high side will just keep building higher and higher and higher. And because this goes right from here, it's after it comes out from the evaporator. So it's sucking in new Freon, and you're just putting more and more Freon into the compressor, but it's not flowing back through. So what happens is you just keep building more and more pressure out of the compressor. And if you let these pressures build really high, then you're going to blow a hose or blow the compressor or do some damage. That's what happened to this individual in the past, because the units that you buy at the store, they just come with the Freon and a little hose that has a gauge. Let me show you what they come with. They come with one of these units, and then the can is just attached to there, and then they just plug this into the low side. So if you plug that in and this is showing, over here in the green, oh, I'm good, I'm low pressure, keep putting more Freon in it because it's low, well, then what's going to happen is just going to keep building pressure until it blows. So occasionally you should, first of all, you want to make sure there is pressure in the system, because you don't want to put Freon into a system that is completely empty without running a vacuum on it first. Because if let's say that you had a hose blow or you replace seals or something, the system's been empty, you don't just want to pump Freon in it, because then you're capturing all the air or moisture in the system. So what you're going to want to do is hook up a vacuum pump to one of these gauge sets. I don't have it hooked up because this one has pressure already, so it's probably just low on Freon. But what you're going to want to do in that case is you're going to want to put a vacuum on it to suck all the moisture out, or as much of it as you can, and then you want to make sure there's no leak, so that it holds vacuum for a while. 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If the vacuum stays the same, then you're good to go. Then you can start adding Freon. Of course, we're always going to add through the low side. But if you hook up a gauge and you got pressure like these do, then we can just go ahead and add Freon and watch the pressures as we go. Now, if you don't have a sight, see, these gauges have a little sight glass where you can see the Freon coming through and the bubbles going through, so you can see Freon is flowing. When it quits flowing, it's full. But if you don't have one of those side glasses where you can see that, some units have a little side glass on top of the receiver dryer or somewhere in the system. If you don't have one of those, the best way to do that is to use a thermometer, put it in your vent, turn the AC to max and on high, and then we can go ahead and see the temperatures as they rise and fall. And then that way we'll be able to know exactly when it's full. If it gets to the maximum temperature, then we know that, or the lowest temperature, and it starts to rise, then we know we're adding too much Freon. So let's get a new can of Freon hooked up to this, and we'll go ahead and add Freon to this system. Okay, I was trying to do it this way so you guys will have what you get at the store that comes with this. But basically you got to turn this valve in so that you start getting some pressure. And you see here, this gauge is all, it went all the way from 26 or whatever, it's up to about 40. And you feel the can, it starts to get cold. Can you feel that? Okay, so that means that we're getting flow into the system, and my high side pressure should be going up. It should get over 200. So if it starts to get a little cold, you can watch and monitor the pressure here and just make sure you keep it under 60. See how it's going way up there? It's getting up to about 50. We can kind of turn it upside down a little bit and get some pressure, but we don't want to let it get to the red, because if it gets to the red, then you're running too much pressure through the low side of the compressor. Okay, so we'll just keep pouring this a little bit at a time. Now there's another way. If you get impatient with this, a lot of people turn it upside down and then they put their compressor under stress. But another way is to get some warm or hot water in a pan or a bowl, and then you can stick the can in the hot water so that it'll keep this can, because once it gets too cold, it'll quit flowing, and we'll just have to wait a little bit. So let me get some warm water in a little can, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, the water doesn't have to be that hot, just warm. But this can is completely cold, so it's not getting any more in there. So we'll just put it in this warm water, and we'll get this can to flow some more. Okay, so one of the things we want to do is we put this in warm water so it keeps the Freon flowing. If you see the pressure goes up, you'll know when the can is empty, when suddenly the pressure starts to drop. That means there's no more Freon or pressure coming out of this can. You want to get some air flowing through the radiator and through the condenser. So we want to rev this thing up to about 1200 RPM. A little higher. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to shut this off because I think our pressure is high enough. We'll see if we can get that temperature to drop. We want to shut it off because if we get too much Freon in there, see our temperature is already getting up there to around 300. So that's getting there. So now we'll see what our low side pressure is, and it's at the max on the meter with no, there it goes, see that? It's dropping. The high side is now good. We don't need to go any higher than that. So let's check our temperature and see where we're at. Well, we can check the ambient here. Yeah, the air that it's being drawn in, we can see the change. You can see there that the temperature of the air it's drawing in is around, I was still climbing. We're not touching anything with the gauge, so it's just measuring the air temperature. Okay, so we're getting air temperature drawn through the radiator or the condenser of 120 plus degrees, and it's putting air out at 60 some degrees. So the temperature difference is quite drastic. I mean, it's working well. And as we look at our pressures, we got about 250 on the high side, and then we've got about 30 on the low side. So I think that's working good, and we should be good to go. Because all the heat is right here, so you got to be careful not to burn yourself. Well, that's gonna do it for this little tracker. Customer's happy. He's gonna come and pick that up in a bit. Well, folks, that's gonna do it for this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.